Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show. My name is Steve Ampalou, and on today's episode, I'm sitting with a toolmaker, a gentleman who also makes some really unique tools and hand tools and just a plethora of things. So I am really excited for you guys to get to hear his story and learn all about what he does and what his business offers to you guys. So without further ado, the one and only Clay Miller. Welcome to the show, Clay.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
I want to start off and I want to ask, let's talk about where is your shop located? Because I know you have a new shop.
Yep. So we just moved in. It's in Temple, Texas, north of the town. We've been here since November, and we're still getting things figured out. It's a little bit of a mess. There's some things I want to do that to make it a better shop, but it's getting close. It's workable now. I'm currently building tools.
And so you had a shop previously in town?
In town, in Temple. That was a place I rented, and it was a bigger building than what I'm in now by about twice the size. So I've shrunk, but it was hot and dirty and dusty. My neighbors were an car audio shop, and so there was a lot of noise. They were great people. I loved them. They were good neighbors, but every now and then the thump would drive me crazy.
Yeah. And so now this shop, is it climate controlled inside?
No, it is not climate controlled. It is insulated.
Okay.
It does not have climate control.
It's probably much better though to work. I mean, you just moved in, so you have to still suffer through a Texas summer yet here.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll test it out and see what it's like. My plans are to add on to it. I want to put a second building right next to it to kind of separate and give me some more room.
So let's talk about your beginnings in leathercraft and how you got into your own business and everything. Let's wind back the years and let's talk about how did you get started in leathercraft?
Kind of like a lot of kids that grow up in a Western lifestyle, 4-H, FFA, did a little bit of crafts as a kid. My parents are both very artistic people. My mom is a professional artist and an art instructor. So I had that background. Kind of played around with it. Didn't really take it very seriously as a kid, just kind of something to do. But as I got older, working with my father, who's a racehorse trainer, sometimes we needed to fix tack or mend a saddle or do things like that. And so I started kind of learning how to do that, teaching myself. This was way before YouTube and any of that kind of help. So just kind of figured it out and realized that, hey, I kind of like this. And then I kind of got into making chaps and leggings for the exercise riders at the racetrack and started going to the Tandy stores and developing a relationship with the manager of the Tandy store in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I was at a racetrack in Farmington, and I got kicked by a horse.
Oh, no.
And luckily it wasn't a serious injury, but my job at the time was I was an outrider. So that's basically like the sheriff of the racetrack. They enforce the rules on the track, make sure there's no loose horses, catch them, lead the post parade before the races start. And it's a position where you're very much in the public eye. And when the horse kicked me, it was right in front of a grandstand full of a ton of people, and they weren't really impressed, my bosses. And so it basically cost me my job. And I was like, well, what do I do now? I've been kind of doing this leatherwork thing. I think I want to pursue that a little bit. So I went down to the Tandy store and was talking to the manager, and I asked him, hey, you guys got any jobs? Yeah, we've got a manager trainee position that we can give you if you want. Well, okay. Get until something else comes up. And I ended up staying for quite a while, and I became a manager at the Tandy store.
In what city was that?
That was in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
Worked at that store for a while, opened a brand new Tandy store in Albuquerque. So we had 2 stores in Albuquerque for a while. From there, I went, and my wife was in a real bad car accident right after our triplets were born. And so I had to kind of take a leave of absence, go home and be with her. We ended up moving to Seattle, Washington.
Oh, wow. That's a big move from
Big,
Albuquerque.
big jump from Albuquerque to Seattle. We spent about a year there, decided that being from the southern United States to Washington was a little bit wet and boring and, well, not boring, but very dreary and depressing. So we moved back to the southern part of the country, back to Colorado Springs. And I went back to work for Tandy at Colorado Springs store and worked there for a while. And they decided to open a new store in Rapid City, South Dakota.
Mm.
And they gave that to me. Went up there and I managed that store for about 3 years. And it was a good store for me. I met a lot of wonderful people there, had great customers. But South Dakota gets really cold in the winter.
It sure does.
Really cold.
You're up in my neck of the woods
Yeah.
from Wisconsin.
Right? So we decided we wanted to move back. We were thinking New Mexico, but my wife is a registered nurse. And she found a job here in Temple working for a hospital that basically paid what we were both making in South Dakota. So it was kind of a no-brainer. Came back down here, and I had to quit Tandy. Had to kind of figure out what I was going to do again. And I had started making some tools. I had a gentleman by the name of Billy Wooters that I met while I was still in Albuquerque. He and I developed a real good friendship. He was kind of a mentor for me, taught me a lot about tooling, always willing to critique my work. And, he had a kind of a catchphrase, "You're coming." If you got that from Billy, you knew you were doing pretty good. That was about as good as you were going to get. But anyways, he made hand tools, made some stamps and a few other things. He got cancer, got pretty sick, and I would call him, we would talk on the phone, and he decided that I needed to have his stamp making equipment.
Wow.
And so that was kind of my intro into stamp making. Got a little bitty lathe, a bunch of hand tools, files, a Fordham, bunch of other small equipment, and kind of played with it for a while. And when we moved to Texas, I decided, I'm going to try this. And so I just kind of threw my head out there that I was making tools, and it just kind of slowly built up and built up. I spent some time working for a saddle shop in Waco, Upmore Saddlery. They're mainly personal items, lots of belts and wallets, and I was a tooler for them. Did a lot of contract tooling, and then I did some in-shop tooling for them for a while. Spent a lot of time there, enjoyed it, had a lot of fun, and some of the guys would come in the shop and say, "Hey, I hear you're making tools. Can you make me this tool? Can you make me that tool?" And I would. And pretty soon it got to where I had to choose, do I want to keep tooling for Upmores or do I want to do my own stamps and tools? And I ended up having to tell them goodbye and focus on the tools because the orders were piling up.
Hey, y'all, I want to talk to you about the very first sponsor for the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show, and it is Leather Machine Company. If you are looking to upgrade your workshop or to speed up the process on making items, then look no further than Leather Machine Co. They have various sewing machines of multi-purpose needs, along with leather cutting and splitting machines. Check out their website or give them a call for more information. Now, let's go back to the show. So let's talk about your tools. Let's talk about the lineup and just the sheer variety of tools you make. Let's go through your product line.
Okay, so there's a bunch. I make mauls, swivel knives, hand tools of several varieties, push bevelers, craft knives, scalpel handles, swivel knives, round knives, trimming knives. I make a full line of French cleat tool holding shelves. I make burnishers. I make, I'm sure I'm missing a bunch, but that's kind of a good starting point.
Yeah. I wanted to actually start by talking about your French cleat tooling shelves, because you're the only person that I know that sells it. And when I stop at your booth and I see everything, you have it on display. So let's talk about how universal and versatile this French cleat system is and what it can do for a leather worker and their tools.
Well, it's very versatile. It's a modular system. So you hang the hanger cleats on the wall, And then each shelf hangs on the hangers, and you can move them around, adjust them. You can take them off, put them back on. But the main benefit is the immense amount of organization that it gives a leather worker. It can take a cluttered tooling desk and just clean it up immediately. And it looks sharp, has a great look to it.
Now, I wanted to quickly switch and talk about mauls, because I see so many people on Facebook and other social media websites. They post a lot about your mauls, and you make really, really unique, one of a kind. Like almost everything is one of a kind, at least from the people that are posting it. And they just have this phenomenal look to it. And I wanted to ask if you can talk about, how did you come up with this idea of using certain materials for your mauls, and what kind of mauls do you offer also?
Okay, so I offer several different weights of mauls, anything from about a 10-ounce maul up to a 48-ounce big one, straight-headed, tapered, either. My handles, I basically gleaned the idea of doing the resin and wood from the knife making. It started probably about 8 or 10 years ago, really gaining popularity in the knife world of using the resin and wood. It's called a worthless wood handle, where they basically take a wild-looking piece of burl wood that has live edge on it, and they cast it in a colorful resin and then make the knife scales out of it. And I thought, man, that would really look cool as a maul handle. And so I tried it. And the first few that I did, I actually didn't do the resin work myself. A guy that I know in Houston did it, and he did a great job. It looked great, but it wasn't quite what I wanted it to look like. You know, there's nothing wrong with what he did, but it just wasn't where I wanted to go with it. So I did a bunch of research on the internet, found a few YouTube video people and started following what they did and gleaning information from them, and got the materials, got the molds, got the resin, and started casting my own scales, and it really blew up. It just really surprised me at how people just jumped on it.
Yeah. I just wanted to let the audience know that you and I, before we're doing this interview, we made a maul. We made a beefy 48-ounce maul, and it was, I've never made a maul, so to me, this is a whole new experience. And there's a lot of little steps, a lot of little things, and I understand why each step was so important. It was because it was like, hey, this has to be done because otherwise this bolt won't fit or this thing won't. And then how we put it all together, and then poof, there it is. And it's like, oh, it's almost done, but needs a little bit of sanding, a little bit of trimming, and and it is like, I am so excited to use it now. I'm so proud of this maul. Good. And I understand it's people are like, oh, it's just the maul, but no, it's a tool. It's a
tool, and it's a work of art, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you know, I put a lot of effort into putting these mauls out that are unique and beautiful and one of a kind, but yet still functional and durable, and do a wonderful job for people that are tooling leather.
And speaking of work of art, I like how you take the resin and then whatever unique wood or whatever it is, and when you combine them, and you do like sets for people. Can you explain what that is?
Well, basically it's people have an idea of, I want this tool and I want that tool and I want them to match. So I can pretty much any of the tools that I make that have a handle, I can put a custom handle on. So I'll get people that'll want, you know, turquoise and copper with manzanita burl wood or something, and I'll pour a big block of it and cut it up and make a whole bunch of different handles for them, and that way they all match and they look cool and they're very unique handles for their tools.
Yeah. Hey everyone, our second sponsor for the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show is none other than the Leather Crafters Journal. Carrying on a tradition of 68 years of publishing the magazine for leather workers and artists worldwide, they also host 3 trade shows in the United States and 1 in Europe. Give them a call or visit their website and use the promo code COMMUNITY, and you will receive an additional free magazine added to your subscription at no charge. The Leather Crafters Journal truly sets the standard with staying up to date on all things leathercraft. If it's about leather, it's in the journal. Now, back to our show. Let's talk about your swivel knives because I know that I have a friend. She loves your swivel knife. Let's talk about the steel used and how you go about coming up with a unique look for your swivel knives.
So my off the shelf swivel knife is a brass barrel swivel knife. It has a barrel that has what I call a finger groove in it. It's got a tapered section that's knurled on an inside curve, and it gives your fingers a little more downward pressure and a little more ease of your grip. The blades are 440C stainless steel. They're heat treated and hardened to approximately a Rockwell 61, somewhere around there. I do all the work myself, so I don't know exactly how hard they are, but they're good. They're sharp. They're easy to maintain. The custom swivel knife barrels is where I can really have a lot of fun. I recently did one that was in the style of a Marine dress blues uniform. So it had the colors of the Marine uniform with some brass spacers, and it really looked cool. I've done pine cones in resin on swivel knives. I've done all kinds of cool stuff, unique shapes.
Now, because you are a super custom like tool maker and handle maker, is there anything that like someone has asked you that you're like, ooh, I can't make that? Or is everything almost like, hey, I can, but we might have to do a few iterations of it?
So there are some things I've had to turn down. Human remains.
Oof.
I've turned that down a couple of times. Anything that's made out of really hard stone or rock, because my working tools, it just messes them up.
How can someone get a hold of you and then if they want to work with you on that custom tool, if they say, hey, you know, I have this plot of land, there's a lot of cactuses on it. I want to use this dried cactus into all of my handles for all my tools. Can they send you tools and the cactus and can you make those for them?
Yes, I can. I've done that quite a few times. It's one of my favorite things to do, actually, is to do sets for people that have some sentimental value. Cactus, pine cones, tree branches, bark from the trees, anything that is porous and of the wood nature is I can pour it into resin and it works good. As far as for how they get a hold of me, MillerCustomLeatherToolCompany.com, Clay at MillerCustomLeatherToolCompany.com, or they can call me on my work phone, 254-654-4906.
Awesome. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever made a left-handed potato peeler or a safety skiver for someone?
I have.
Oh, you have?
I have.
Because everyone always asks, like, where can I get a left-handed? And like, I feel like no one knows that answer.
I have made them, and it was really ugly, but it worked.
Oh.
And the trick to it was I took it and cut the end off and welded it on the other side.
Yeah, I feel like that's
about the only way I can figure out, because I don't have a metal bender to do the actual metal fabrication for those style of safety skivers.
Yep.
But so I just cut the end off, turned it around, and welded it on the other side.
Now, Clay, you have a lot of machinery here. Like you have so many lathes, you have grinders, you have just a gamut of machinery. How did you acquire all of this and start building this shop up as what it is?
Slowly, one piece at a time. As I could afford it, I'd buy the best that I could afford. Didn't always mean it was the best out there, but paid attention when stuff went on sale, and I've been doing the tool business now for about 15 years. And like I said, when I first started out, all I had was what Billy Wooters gave me. And then I added the lathe that he gave me broke down eventually. It was just a little tiny Harbor Freight lathe. And I ended up buying a new one. And that worked for a while. And then I had to buy a better one. And it just has been one of those deals where as I see things, I spend a fair amount of time in the evenings looking on the internet, watching YouTube videos, watching podcasts, seeing what knife makers are building, what cabinet makers are building, what kind of tools they're using, and seeing if I can figure out how to use that in my business. And it has helped because I introduced myself to the CNC routers through YouTube videos and a friend of mine that had a a sign making and trophy engraving business, and he had a CNC router, and it was really cool to watch him build stuff with it. And I thought, man, I got to figure out how to use that in my business. And so I bought a little tiny one that was, I think the bed on it is probably 12 inches by 18 inches. And I played with it, and I used it to engrave the brass for my mauls and learned how to do some stuff. And then I finally saved up some money and bought a bigger one. And I learned how to do the mauls, the whole maul on there. And then that is also the machine that I use for the French cleat shelves. And it does such a clean job of cutting them out that you couldn't do it by hand and make any money.
I found it fascinating watching that machine make the handle for the maul that we made.
Mm-hmm.
It blows my mind. I know it sounds so simple,
Mm-hmm.
but to watch it take this square piece of wood and then shape it into what I know that's going to fit my hand, it's like, oh, like this is awesome. So like, yeah,
It's very mesmerizing. I have to be careful and not get stuck staring at the machine as it goes back and forth, because it can just capture you and keep you there all day long.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of tools, is there any tool that you enjoy using and working with here in this shop? I know there's a lot. You have so much.
You know, the CNC routers are a lot of fun because they're so versatile and there's so many things you can do with the CNC routers. But I'm kind of old fashioned too. I like an old fashioned wood lathe. I have a lot of fun making stuff on the wood lathe. I have a metal lathe that I enjoy working with. I'm not a skilled metal lathe person. I never went to school to learn how to do it. So I'm sure if a true machinist came in and watched me use that lathe, they'd probably scream and yell at me. But I enjoy it. I enjoy all these tools. I enjoy being a creative person, and I think that I have truly found my passion doing this stuff. I really enjoy making stuff for people. It is definitely the calling of my life.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, like, you have the way your workshop is set up. If the audience could just be a fly in the wall and see, and I understand that you just moved into the shop, it's a work in progress, but like, you move with intention of each machine. Like, there is a reason why over behind me, you guys, there's sanding machines, and then there's the belt sanders, and then all of his buffing wheels. There's like, and how we made this maul is just, it's small steps, and boom, boom, down the line it goes.
Yep.
And it just works. And it's like, wow, what could possibly come if you keep expanding, you know, like that just blows my mind of like a monster production shop here for customizable tools and et cetera, other things. So, but let's talk about one of your experience on one of the tools that pops out to you that you can think of, that you can recall in the last 5, 10, 15 years that you made, that you're just like, wow, this was one of the coolest experiences I had. It may not have been like the best tool you made, but just the experience of making a tool for someone.
One of the most special tools I've made was a maul for a young lady in northern Texas that her grandfather passed away, and he always carried a handkerchief.
Oh.
And when he passed away, she got the handkerchief, and it was a big reminder of their relationship. And she called me up one day and said, "Hey, can you put this handkerchief in a maul handle?" Sure. I was scared to death to do it, but it worked out. What I did was I cheated. I went to the hardware or the Western clothes store and bought a couple of cheap handkerchiefs and did several practice runs before I made hers, but it came out perfect. And it was so cool. And to see her reaction when she received it and how special it was for her was really cool.
Yeah. Hey everyone, our newest sponsor for the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show is Milwaukee Steel Rule Dies. They specialize in manufacturing your leather designs into dies for your clicker machine. They have state-of-the-art equipment that will help you level up your Leathercraft products and production with clean-cut leather every single time. Family operated and owned, proudly made in Wisconsin. Contact Milwaukee Steel Rule Dies for all of your leather die solutions. So what's next for Miller Custom Leather Tools?
Right now, just kind of plugging along, getting caught up on orders, working my butt off to get this shop exactly how I want it. And then I've always got tons of ideas running through my head. There's a lot of tools I want to make that I just can't quite make yet because I don't have the right press or the right this or the right that. So yeah, I definitely want to expand. I want to make a bigger building, like I mentioned earlier, and just keep doing this stuff. It's so much fun.
Now, let's talk about trade shows.
Mm-hmm.
So you attend a lot of the trade shows.
I do.
And let's talk about your first trade show and how that little trade show bug bit you, and so now you attend more trade shows.
So the first trade show I attended as a toolmaker was the Wichita Falls Boot and Saddle show. And I went there with a couple of handfuls of tools and honestly thought I was going to just have a killer show. I'm the new guy on the block. And I honestly didn't do that good because I didn't have that much inventory. Nobody knew who I was. But I did get a few customers that were like, hey, this is kind of cool what you're doing. And that was enough to push me on. And so I did the Wichita Falls show for about 5 or 6 years before I did any of the other big ones. And then I was with Aaron Heiser. He and I had a shop together in Killeen, and he had gone to Sheridan the year before we moved in together, and he was getting ready to go to Prescott and do that show. And he's like, well, you might as well come with me. I'm going. And I was like, well, I don't know. All right, I'll go. And I had a handful of tools. There's one little section on his table where I had maybe 20 stamps, 10 swivel knives, 5 mauls, something like that. I don't remember exactly. But I dang near sold out. And it was like, oh, wow. Okay, so maybe I do need to do this. And I did trade shows with Aaron, and we shared a booth for 2 more years, I think. Maybe it was just 1 more year. I can't remember. But we would do Sheridan, the Wichita Falls show, and the Prescott show.
And Waco show is in your backyard here.
Yes.
It's like minutes away.
Yeah, it's 40 minutes away from me.
Yeah,
I think the only person that is closer to the Waco show is Aaron.
You and Aaron.
Yeah.
Well, Clay, I just want to wrap this up, and I want to thank you for coming on the show. But before we wrap it up, to quickly go back to the last question, which was about the trade show. So you have all of your items on display at the trade show, so people can look at your French cleat and all your tools and test everything out, correct?
Most of everything that I make.
Okay.
I won't say that I have everything because there are a lot of things that I make where I only make 2 or 3 a year, and I don't feel that I have to have that particular item at a show.
Totally understandable.
But yeah, all the French cleats are there. My mauls, there's a big variety of mauls. My swivel knives are there. The big tools, the ones that everybody wants are there.
Yeah, I saw all your mauls at Prescott this year, and I was just like, oh my God, there's so many unique. There's like Geo ones. There's just a lot. There's a lot of mauls. They look fabulous. And then again, they're tapered or they're flat. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of variety for those people who want that stuff. Well, Clay, I want to give you one more chance to tell the audience how can they contact you if they've made it this far in the interview, and reach out to you if they have a custom tool they would like to.
You bet. They can reach out to me via social media. I have a business Facebook page. It's Leather Tools by Clay Miller. And I have Instagram at Miller Custom Leather Tool Company. And then I have my website. It's www.millercustomleathertoolcompany.com. And email clay@millercustomleathertoolcompany.com, and my phone number. You can give me a call, 254-654-4906.
That's it. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for inviting me in and letting me just spend the day here with you and make this mall and let the audience know a little bit about who you are and everything that you offer. to this awesome leathercraft community. So thank you for everything. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you for coming, man. It's been a great day.
All right, you guys, thank you for watching another episode of the Leathercraft Community Podcast Show. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.